Hello again, friends. It's Sharon from Mad Paper Crush, and welcome to the second part of making a wine bag journal. I am looking forward to finishing this project with you today. So here we go. Okay, our front and back are all decorated, and I really like the way this turned out. Now what I'm going to do before I do the signatures is I'm going to sew the cover. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to sew around the edge, and when I'm sewing, and I'm really just going to sew down this side and down this side. And then since we cut this pleat so that we could turn our flap under when we sew, that's what I'm going to do. So for when I'm sewing down this edge, I'm going to sew just on this pleat. I'm going to fold this one under so that I don't sew it. But then when I get to the middle, I'm going to pull both of the pleats in and sew down this whole thing. And one thing to mention as well is that when you sew down, you want to be sure you get your pocket in. So you want all of this sewn down on the back side. You want to make sure your pleat is folded down on the front flap before you sew here. And same thing with this side. I'll make sure I sew in the whole pocket up to the fold line, and then I'll fold this pleat down and just sew up here for the rest of it. So that's what I'm going to do, and I will be right back. Alrighty, we have that sewn. You can see here I have it sewn on both sides. I didn't need to sew this end because it's folded. I could have if I wanted to, and obviously I didn't want to sew this edge because it would sew up our pocket that we have there on our front cover. So now you can see we have a pocket here, and this is a giant pocket since it has that pleat, so you could really put a lot in there if you wanted to. You have sort of even two spaces to put that in. And then when you open it up, you have a pocket here, and there's actually even a little pocket in front of that. So there's sort of a divider in here because that's where our bag opening was. So you have sort of two places to put ephemera if you want to. And then you also have this little tuck spot here that you could put, you know, something in, a little card in or something right there. I think that would be a perfect place to put a little card if you wanted to. So lots of little places to fill in. And now we are ready to get our signatures going. Okay, one thing I want to do before I do the signatures is I want to put my inside piece of fabric. I'm going to do, actually I think I'm going to do both because I want to really reinforce this spine before we sew our signature in, and then my thread will be on the outside so that I can add some dangles if I want to do that as well. So I'm going to take my strips of fabric here, and I'm just going to decide, you know, which piece I want where. This side, your signature will be sewn in, so not very much of this will show at all. And on this side, a lot will show because it is the outside of your journal. So this one will, you know, show a lot more than the inside one. So decide if you chose two different fabrics, you know, what you want to go there. And honestly, I kind of like them both there. So let's see, I think maybe I'm going to use this one for my outside piece. I'm not sure. This one looks like it tried to tear it maybe at one time and it didn't work so good or something. So lots of little ends to cut off here, but it's pretty nicely frayed. So I think that would work fine there if I wanted to. As you can tell, I'm still deciding. Oh yeah, I think I like that better because there's more browns inside. I think I'm gonna go with that. But I do think I am going to try to rip this down just a little bit because it's really big and there will be a lot kind of sticking out if I don't tear it down. So I think I'm going to find the edge that I like better and leave that one alone. And then I will measure this to where I want it and take my scissors here, make a snip, and we'll see if we can tear that off. Luckily that was big enough. Okay. And while I don't mind ends hanging off, that was a lot. Okay. Yes, I think I like that better. And then this one on the outside also kind of fits right in place here. I may see if I can just kind of, looks like there's a pull in here or something. See if I can get some of these threads out to get rid of that. There we go. And I like the way that looks as well. Okay, so put those away. And then all I'm going to do is I'm going to use, actually I'm going to use my 3-in-1 glue this time. And I'm just going to try to center them around the fold as much as possible and glue them down. And we'll do the same thing on the inside. And usually, just a little tip, when I am gluing fabric down using my 3-in-1 glue or my Fabri-Tac, I always try to spread the glue around a little so that if it does decide to bleed through, it won't be real obvious that, you know, you have glue in certain spots here. Of course, this is getting ready to be finished, so it's being temperamental. So I try to outline my fabric as much as I can, put a couple of stripes in the middle, and then I'll just take my finger and just smooth out as much of that as I can. And we're just going to center it in the middle on both sides, middle and around our fold line. And then this will give us plenty of time for this to dry before we sew our signatures in. So we have these nice and dry and ready to go. And I'm going to leave that alone until we start to sew in our signatures. Okay, I've set aside my cover to really dry for us here. And the next thing I'm going to do is start working on my signature pages. Now, I've just pulled out a bunch of pages, and I think I showed you most of them before. And what I just realized was that I really don't have, I mean, this one has a back. Actually, that one has a back, so I might be okay. I was thinking I didn't have enough blank pieces of paper, but I think we'll be okay with what I have here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of show you a couple things. So because this journal is not a tall journal, it's a long journal, you have to consider how you want your pages to go. So like for instance, we would need, for our pages, we would need a little less than 12 inches wide for our length of a paper, and then, you know, to fold over it would be 6 inches, and about 4 inches tall. Now this is a little over 4, almost 4.5 inches, but to give some leeway, I'm probably going to do around 4, but we'll see how that goes. Now for music, like usually, you know, if we cut it like this, then that could be our page, but now you can see we've turned things on its side, and that may be okay. You might want that, you know, for the words. You may not want them to be straight up and down like this. You might want them to go this way, which is totally fine. It's totally a personal preference. So whatever you decide to do there is fine, but it's just something I want you to think about as you're making your cuts. So for my music, I don't mind that it's going to be sideways because actually I think that looks kind of cool if it's going to be sideways. But for some other things like my Warbler book pages that I pulled out here, I may want them to be up and down. So what I'm going to do is I'm probably going to create some kind of franken pages. I'm going to make the cuts at the right height, so my 4 inches high, and then I'm just going to either washi tape them together or maybe even sew them together so that I can make a full, 12-inch piece, or longer than 12-inch, so I can have a fold over. So that's kind of what I'm going to do with that. For my map, I don't mind if that's sideways, so I'm just going to cut it down like this. And now some of these pages aren't 12 inches long, so they're going to be a little less than 6, but that's good. So we have a little bit of, a leeway, a border on each side that we don't have to worry about. And some of them are even smaller, like this one is 11.5, I think, and this one is just 11 inches. So, but once again, I am good with that. I don't mind. And the other thing that I wanted to tell you was I am going to make a little pocket page. So I'm going to use one full page, and I'm going to fold it in half like this and not cut it at all. And then I'm just going to sew the edges so we have a pocket at the top of each one. And I may even do that, I'm not sure yet, to see if I think this one would be durable enough, because this one's a little bit bigger. Actually, I think I'm going to do it with this page, because this page, when we slide things in the pocket, they'll show a little bit, because this is some tracing paper that we're using. So I'm going to give that a try for my pocket there. And then I'm going to cut the rest of those down kind of the way I talked to you about there. And then for these bird pages, this is a really big book. You can see how big this book is. But I pulled out a full signature page out of here because I thought it would be fun to cut my 4 inches this way, so that I could make either little pockets or just a fold or a tuck spot or something with that. So let me actually cut them first, and I'll kind of show you what I mean. So I don't know if I'm going to use the whole page or just 1 or 2 cuts from here, but what I was planning to do was I kind of wanted to see, I kind of liked the way these strips were coming out, and since these were some hummingbirds and stuff, I thought that was kind of cool the way that worked. So what I'm going to do, let's see, first I'm going to see if I have any margin to take off the top, and I don't have much, so, but I kind of don't want to cut off my hummingbird, so let me see where my 4 inches will put me. I'm going to cut a little off the top, I think. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut at this line right here, because then I'll get these hummingbirds in and this little guy in as well. So let me do that. And I've kind of had to fold it inside out, and then I'll measure my 4 from the other side to make sure I get it. And I'm going to take off a little bit of that line. And actually I'm going to try to see. Okay, like that. And then hopefully I can just take a little tiny bit off of the top, and I might cut a little bit of those birds off, but hopefully it won't be too much. So I'm just going to go measure my 4 inches here, and let's see, we got that straight. Okay, so that's my 4 inches. And now if we take the book, and I'll just show you this because the rest I'm just going to do sped up. Now I already have a center that I'm going to be sewing through. And when this goes in my signature, it'll fit like this right in my book. So when I open my pages, oops, they will be there. Now I do think what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut off this border on this side, and then I'm just going to fold them over to make some tuck spots. So I want to cut down here to make sure I don't cut my hummingbird apart here. So I'm just going to cut down right to his tail. Let me still have that nice eye there. And then what I can do is I can fold these in so that I have some tuck spots to work with. So since this is all wording, I could fold this in like this and have a nice little tuck spot right here. And then, I'm just going to wait to do that because I want to make sure once I get it in the signature, I'm folding it in right. But then this side as well, I could either, fold in this eye, that's pretty cool, or, fold it the other way so that the bird wraps around to the other side. So we'll make that decision later. But I'm going to go ahead and cut my pieces up, and then we'll come back and put it all together. Okay, so for my pages that I cut that weren't long enough this way, you could definitely keep them short because it certainly might be fun to have, you know, some pages that were a little shorter in here. But I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to sew them together. So what I'm going to do is just overlap them just a little bit, and then just run a zigzag stitch down here so that I can decide, you know, where I want to cut them and maybe even have the stitching showing. So I don't necessarily want the stitching to be right in the middle because I think it might be fun to be in the middle of a page somewhere. So I'm just going to sew them together and then I'm going to decide how I'm going to cut them down. So I'll be right back. Okay, so I have my pages sewn together and I notice this one's, it doesn't look like it's quite straight, but I'm okay with that. So what I'm going to do is I cut off some of this edge because I really want the bird to be, you know, at the end of the paper. And then I'm going to find my 6-inch mark here and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then we'll make a fold there. And actually, I mean, what we could do, how big is this? Yeah, this is a little over 15 inches. So we could do like a 3-inch fold if I wanted to not cut anything off. And that might be actually kind of fun since all we have is just some blank paper over here. Let's try that so we can sort of preserve the bird plus give some of our stitching to show. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a 3.5-inch fold on this side here. So that'll bring it down a little bit less than 12. And then we have our, we'll do a 6-inch again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So at the 9 here. And so now we have this nice page with a fold out here. That'll be on the one side, which I think is great. And then our stitching will show when you're looking at either page. I like that too. Okay, so let's do the same thing over here, but we'll do it a little bit different. I want to keep the techniques of warbler steady, so I'm going to leave that there. And maybe what I'll do this time instead of cutting is I'll just tear that off a little bit, and we'll do our 6-inch fold right to here. And I'm going to have a little bit sticking out, but we can always take that off if we need to. And then we'll also just tear this down on the matching side there. And I think I must have done that less than 6 inches. Oh no, maybe I did this more than 6 inches. Yes, I did. I did it 7 inches. Yikes. Okay, so let's see. What should we do here? So this is my fold here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm going to take this off. And actually, since I'll still have warbler, I think I'll be all right with that. So let me go here. And this time, hopefully count correctly. And we'll take these two off here. I was wondering why that edge was kind of so small there. Okay, so now I have my 2 pages here. And then for the rest of them, besides these really long ones, actually, I'm going to go ahead and fold them in half because these are ones we're going to fold in or cut off or make tuck spots or something with. So I'm just going to go through and fold the rest in half. Okay, the next step is to kind of put your signature together the way that you want it. But before I do that, I just wanted to mention that when I folded this paper over, it's from 1956, I think. So it's pretty old, and I noticed when I was folding it that it looked like it may tear. It's pretty brittle. So what I want to do before I set this up is add some washi tape just as some reinforcement. So I just grabbed some washi tape. Let's see if I can find the end. That I'm just going to put down around the crease on both sides. And I may even just sort of reinforce it with some my glue stick here. So I'll just run a strip of glue down the middle, add my washi tape, and then do that on both sides for both pieces of paper. All right, time to put the signatures together, and I'm just going to decide what papers I want in what order, and I'm just going to line them up and go ahead and do that. And actually, I think I'm going to have this one be first. So now I'm just going to put them all together in the order that I want them. Okay, one thing I noticed when I was putting this together is I didn't cut down my tracing paper. So I'm going to need to do that. So I'm just going to go back in real quick and make sure, because when I folded this one in half, I think it's a 9-inch wide paper. And so I need to cut some of that off so it's not sticking out the top. And this is going to be our pocket page. So I'm just going to make sure that I have this down to 4 inches before I start putting everything together. The other thing that I'm going to do with this paper is I'm going to sew the edges, because since I want this to be top pockets, I want the edges sewn together so that they won't come apart. So then we'll have some cute little top pockets up there that we can have things sticking out of. So now I'm just going to go and sew these edges together, and I'll be right back. Okay, now I'm going to get my longer pages ready to go. So for each page, I'm just going to decide what I want to do with the excess. So for this one, now I got to make sure I count right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is 6 inches right here. For the top, I have to decide if I want my eye showing here or my birds. So this one, I'm just going to leave it as a fold. I'm not going to sew it or make a pocket out of it or anything like that. I'm just going to leave it like that because I like the way that it would look folding in and out. And then for this one, depending on what's on this side, like this one, I may do a tuck spot or a little pocket on the side. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I can fold this in. And then maybe what I'll do is I will just add some stitching down here so that I have a little pocket on that side. So that's all I'm going to do with these. And I may even, cut off some of the ends if I want to as well, so that we're not getting this too bulky. So I'm going to finish that up and I'll be right back. Okay, I finished up all my pages, and before I stitch it together, I wanted to just mention one thing that I noticed. So as I put my signature together, I see that some of my pages are really sticking out here. Now, a lot of times when you do one signature, the fold sort of increases the length of your pages. So I think that's a little bit of what's happening. And even as I look at that, you can see the inner folds of some of these pages are squishing out so that they look like they're probably 1/4 of an inch longer than, they originally were when I measured them, flat. So I am going to go back through on each of the pages and just make sure each side is 6 inches or maybe even a little bit below, since our flaps or our cover pages are 6 inches exactly. We probably want our inner pages to be a little bit smaller. So I won't be able to do that with all of them because I have some folds and things unless I wanted to take them apart. So I'm just going to kind of go through and make sure anything that's really sticking out I've cut off. And a lot of my folds I did end up folding a little bit smaller, so I think we'll be fine. But I just wanted to let you know that before I actually sew everything in, I want to be sure these pages are a little bit more in line. And I think that's due to this folding issue, but also I may have mismeasured or something. So I'm going to go do that right now. Okay, signatures all ready to go. And I know that when I sew things in, it'll pull these a little bit tighter as well. So even though it does seem to stick out a little bit here, I don't mind that. I think that gives it a little bit of character here. And when we start putting some ephemera and stuff in here, that's gonna cover that up. It's gonna make our cover page a little bit longer as well. So let's go ahead and get stitching. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just going to get my string, and I'm gonna cut a piece that is approximately 3 times the height of my book here, and then I'm just gonna cut a little extra. That's probably way too much, but if I want to put dangles on the end there, I want to be sure that I can do that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm not even going to make a template or anything. I'm going to line everything up where I want it, and I'm going to use some of these binder clips here to hold everything in place while I punch my holes and sew it together. So now, one thing that you need to know is because we did a 4-inch height on our page, you want to be sure that that's centered in between where you want it before you punch your holes or anything. And the other thing that is always important to do is make sure you go through your entire book and make sure anything you want right side up is actually right side up, so that you don't sew things in and they're upside down and you have to pull it all out. So that's good for me here, how I have those together. And they look pretty centered as well. So I'm going to leave everything together like this. I may even just throw a couple more on here just to really hold it as much as I can here while I'm doing this work. So I'm going to take my little paper piercer that I had out before. There it is. This is just a little nice sharp paper piercer there, and I'm going to do 3 holes in this. And when I do the 3 holes, I'm going to do one in the center, so as close to the center as I can, and I'm just going to make sure that I punch all the way through. And you could do this on a you know, with an awl on a phone book or something like that if you wanted to as well. So I have my first hole there, and then I'm going to do 2 more holes, one about a 1/2 inch from each end of our page. So this is a lot of pages to go through, so you got to take your time, but really use some force there to get that thing through. Okay, so now we have our 3 holes, and I'm going to leave everything together. I'm going to get my needle out, and we're going to sew. Now I'm doing a 3-hole pamphlet stitch, and you probably have seen this before. We're going to start on the outside so that our ends are on the outside, so that we can add any embellishments that we want to on the outside when we're done. So I'm hoping that because I have everything together, that when I start threading, my needle's going to come right up. I'm going through the middle hole, and then I'm going to pull it, but leave a nice tail in the end there. I'm going to go down through my bottom hole, and then I'm going to take my thread all the way up to the top hole and go in through the top hole. That one worked too. And then we're going to come out for our last stitch. We're going to go back through the middle hole, and I'm just going to keep it closed and make sure I don't thread through my thread. All right, now I'm going to take my needle off, and then we're going to tighten everything up. So if I can find my end, here we go. Okay, so before you tie any knots, it's always good to make sure your stitches are nice and secure. So I like to make sure I'm holding one end or both ends of my stitches, and since this is 3-hole, this is a pretty easy to see if you're all 3 in line. Same thing with the outside, make sure everything's nice and tight. And then what I like to do is I like to be sure that I have one end on one side of that long stitch in the back there, and the other one on the other side. And then I'm just going to, and actually what I may do, I notice this one's pretty short, so what I may do is I may try to even them up a little bit, because if I want to add any beads or anything to the end, I might need a little bit more to work with. So that's a little bit better. I could maybe even do just a teeny bit more. Okay, let's see how we doing there. Yep, that's better. So now if I want to add anything to the ends of these, I can do that. So I'm just going to tie a double knot here just to secure it for the moment, so we can take all those clips off, and we'll take a look at our book. Actually, I'm going to do a triple knot. Do one more. Make sure things are nice and tight. And I'm going to leave these long in case I want to add anything to it. So now I can take my binder clips off, and we have a nice bag journal coming together. I love the way it's looking. Yes, love it. Okay, so you can see here, it did pull things in tighter a little bit for me. And now we can start working on ephemera. So I'm gonna use some of the things that I had mentioned before. So I'm probably gonna use some of these and make some note cards with them. I might even use this tag I had before. I'm just going to make some little bits of ephemera to go throughout here, and we will come back and see how it looks. Okay, before we put our ephemera in, because that'll be our last step, I wanted to add some dangles to the cording that I have at the end here. So what I've done is I've pulled out just a selection of different beads that I think might go together, plus 2 little charms that I'll be using on the ends to kind of hold everything on and together. So all I'm going to do is I think I'm going to make one of them just kind of small. And so I have these 2 little beads that are end caps. So they kind of are triangular in shape. And I'm going to put the small end in first so that it, creates kind of a top for this dangle. And then I'm going to use this glass bead here next. And then the other end cap bead on the end, but this time I'm going to put the wide end on. And so because the holes in these are pretty big, I want to secure it with one of these charms at the end so that I know that the beads won't slide off over any knot that I would make. That's kind of why I'm using these charms. So I thought I would, and this one, because the charms are kind of small, I mean, I could keep those beads all the way up towards the knot and then tie it right off there. But I think it might be fun to have a little play in this one, maybe. I don't know, those end caps are really gonna kind of fall around for me. So I think what I might do is leave some play in the other one. This one I will kind of secure right to the end of the beads there. My cord started fraying a little bit. I'm just going to cut that off to make it easier to put that through. And then what I'll do is I'll slide this. Actually, I'll tie it first and then slide it right up. So I'm going to just put like a little knot in this, and I'm not going to pull it tight yet because I want to be sure that I try to get it as close to the bead top as I can. So I have this big giant bead here, or big giant loop that I've just made. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my tweezers to select or to clip onto the cording as close to the end bead as I can. So my loop is kind of going around where I have my tweezers. And when you do that, that will actually help you make a nice secure knot really close to the knot there. And then I'm just going to add another one pretty much the same way. I'm gonna create my loop. And then before I tighten it up, I'm going to make sure I once again tweezer down on the knot that I just made so that when I pull this loop tight, it will go right on top of the knot that I just made. So now I have 2 nice knots right up there close to the beads. And I have one cute little dangle there. Now, the other thing that you can do is you can cut this off now. If you cut it kind of close, I would add a dab of glue on there, and that's probably what I'll do. So actually, before I'm going to do that, I'm going to do the dab of glue. So I'll put a dab of glue on here, let it dry, and then cut this down so it's not so long, you know, on the end. But I think I'm going to wait to do that until I'm done doing both of my dangles. So the other one, let's see, I have some of these beads left. Let's see what I want to do here. I may just do this one kind of simple. Actually, maybe I'll start with the small one. Maybe I'll start with the silver one. And then I'll just kind of graduate them up here bigger as we go. And then because you see how big that hole is, I definitely want to have something at the end of that. So in this one, like I said, I may leave a little bit more play in this one. And that's so both of the dangles have some room to move around too, I think. So all I'm going to do is finish my charm off the same way. I'm going to put this in. And now just so you're aware, the loop in this charm may kind of sit up in that bead a little bit if it's hanging down, but that's okay. So it doesn't go all the way down. So I'm good with it. Okay, so we have our charm on. I'm going to make sure I leave a little room. I'm going to make my loop. And then before I pull it tight, I'm going to reach into the loop and grab just as far as I want. Now, because I'm going to add some play in here, I don't have to tighten these beads up against the top here. I'm just going to kind of think how far I want it to go, and then I'm going to tighten my knot right around my tweezers there. And then once again, we'll do another knot to make sure it's nice and secure. And I will be adding a loop. Now, when you do the tweezers, you have to make sure your tweezers go through the knot that you made or the loop that you made so that it'll tighten down in the right spot there. Now we have a nice knot in that one. So you can see my cute little dangles here on the end. I love the way those look. So now I am just going to add a little dab of glue. I'm going to add some of my glitter glue right to each of the knots that I made. And then I'm going to let this go to dry before I cut anything off there. So I'm just going to make sure I have some good glue around that knot and maybe put a little scrap piece of something under here so I don't get glue all over my board, which I'm sure I have plenty on there already. Okay. And then I'm just going to add another drop of glue to this one to make sure it stays put. All right, and we'll let that dry and then I'll be right back. All right, friends, here it is, all finished. I've cut my tails off. I've got my ephemera in. So I'll do just a quick little flip through so you can see what I added for ephemera, but I just love the way it turned out. So in our front pocket here, and I just put one little tall note card in here with some graph on the back, but a lot more could go in here for sure. It's already got, you know, that good alligator mouth going on. And then we have our pages, which we put in. So I won't do too much with those, but I just kind of wanted to give you a little flip. We got our music pages in there. And then here is our tracing paper pocket. And I love how you can just sort of see through here just a little bit, just enough to give you an idea of what's there. So I have this beautiful note card with a tab on there, and that can go right in here. And then I like leaving the tab up so you can see it above the top of the journal. And we got some more birds, and there's another little tuck spot here. I didn't put anything in, but I did sew the bottom of that and kind of curve the edge there around his head, and I like the way that looks. And then we got some more pages here. And we're This is the middle of the journal. And then over here, I have another little pocket here. I didn't put anything in there yet either, but there's a cute little pocket. I did sew the edges of those so that you could put something in there if you wanted to. And then this kind of looks like it might be something, but it's actually just that franken page that I made. And then you have a cute little flip out here. And then we come to our other tracing paper pocket here, and this one has another beautiful note card in there with a Ohio, I don't know how to pronounce it, and with a fabric tab top that matches the outside, so I thought that was cute too. So I'm just going to slide that back in there, and once again there's just enough visibility to see through there. I like how that looks. And then we're coming to the end here, another page with a little flip out on it. And then on the back, in our big pocket here, I put in 2 pieces of ephemera, another note card that has a little franken page backing on it, and some fabric scraps, and then some yarn scraps on the tab top of this tag that I made there with a little index card. And those go back in here. And then in my little tuck spot, I just created this cute little journal within a journal. So this just has some pages in it, book pages, and some form pages that I have here, and then some blank pages. But I like the way this kind of tucks right in there and creates a little notepad for you right there. So that is it, my friends. I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, I hope you'll give it a thumbs up. And if you're not subscribed to my channel, you can hit the subscribe button. And if you hit the bell, you'll be notified every time I have a new video out. Hope you guys have a great week. I'll talk to you soon. See you in the next video. Bye-bye.